Hello, I'm Jayanne, and thank you for watching my channel. Today we're going to talk about the banks, the interesting banks feeling. But first, if you could just go ahead and hit the like button and whatever, share it so that way other people can get to it. That would be awesome. All right, so the first thing that we have to think about when we talk about banks and money is that there are two kinds of money. There are assets and there are income. Assets are basically buckets of money, so like big piles of money. Income is a flow. So when we talk about somebody has a lot of money, or where what we're seeing from our end, we see, oh, that person has a big house, so they must have a lot of money. It's not necessarily true. And believing that the house is this huge asset is not also not true. Assets are buckets of money that bring you income. Okay. So when we talk about income, income is a flow, or buckets of money that have the potential to bring you income may or may not, right? So when we talk about income, well, most people think of when they think of income is I work a job and I make money, right? Somebody gives me money to work a job. Um, but it's moving. Income is moving money. Income is money going here, going there, flowing. Okay. It's in circulation. Um, so when we see somebody who has a big house or has a bunch of stuff, we think they have a lot of money. That may or may not be true. What we're seeing is that they have a lot of stuff. They may actually have a high income, but if you're not turning that income into a bucket of money and putting it into a location, you're not going to have a lot of money. You're just going to flow a lot of money. And so that's a difference, okay? When people this is one of those money mindset things that I wanted to highlight. First of all, is when you see somebody with a big house, when you see somebody with a nice car, that does not necessarily mean they have a lot of money. There's a fallacy of if you have money to do X, then you have money to do Y. And that's not necessarily true, right? You might have money to do X, but not Y. You might have money, you might not even have money to do X, but you do it anyways, right? So, um, having money and flowing money are two different things. That's assets and income. Okay. This all is important because I want you to understand like those two things play into the bigger picture of what's even happening right now. And it all has to do with interest rates, unfortunately. And here we are. So, um, if you have a lot of money, like a bank or a financial institution, they say, give me your money. So bank's model is let me have your money. If you have a bunch of money, then I can invest that money and make more money. And the banks don't make any money off of you putting money in the account. What they make money off of is by investing it, right? So when major financial events happen, it affects financial institutions. Okay. What the investments that financial institutions love the best are bonds because you have a guarantee that your principal is not going to change or go away. Like so with stocks, the money can go up, that can go down, right? They're risky. Bonds have a guaranteed income with them. So that model of taking your, if you think about like your savings account or a CD, you put money, you take a bucket of money and you put it in, and it's flowing money in, right? Right. Well, until a couple of months ago, that rate was like maybe 0.01%, right? And you're like, whoopsie-doo, that doesn't even keep pace with inflation. But for them, for the banks, they're investing it in bonds, okay? When they put money into bonds, you have to put money in for 3, 5, 7, 10, 20 years. And so you don't have access to that money. The only way you can have access is to sell the bond. Okay? Here's the thing. If I were a bank and I bought $100,000 bond last year, so before the Fed raised the interest rates, if I bought $100,000 bond last year, and let's say a good deal on that was 3% interest, and I'm making 3%, but my money is tied up for 7 years. Okay, that's normal. This is why they sell you CDs at a higher interest rate, because they can do the same thing basically to you. That's what's happening to them. So their money is locked up for 7 years at 3% interest. Then the Fed raises interest rates. The Fed raises interest rates. So now, today, you can buy a bond, let's say for 6%. They still have that 3% bond. For 7 years, they're locked into that 3% bond. They can't take that $100,000 and put it now into a 6% bond unless they sell that for less than $100,000. So they may have to sell that bond for and it's usually a mathematical the way that ends up getting priced, it's usually related to how much time is left on the bond and how much that interest rate is. So they may have to sell that bond, or even less even, right? They may have to sell the bond at $60,000. Now they've lost money on that bond in order to get the new bond. Is that worth it to them? No. But let's say they have all these bonds that are now old. They are now at a lower interest rate that no one wants to buy. Okay. Because they want the new fangled bonds. Okay. When interest rates dropped, then the price of, way back when, price of the bonds that they used to have went up. So yay, good times, right? Um, but if a lot of people are trying to pull money out of their accounts, they're forced to sell those bonds. Now, the way that they plan on investing these things is all done with a lot of mathematical risk and probability scores, and then you've got like the current interest rates of what's going on today. And so all that has to come together, but you cannot raise interest rates and expect nothing crazy to happen. So this was probably an attempt to also flush out banks that were riskier and that weren't doing very well, or were doing really well, but they're really good at having riskier investments. So that's why Silicon Valley Bank had some issues, because their investments were tech startups, right? So if you're having riskier investments and you're putting and your money, the rest of your money is tied up in these multi-year lower interest rate bonds, then the value of your bonds is going to go down. And then if some of your riskier investments don't go as well as you'd hoped, you're in a very tough spot as a bank. And it's literally like, for financial institutions, they have a threshold. And if they drop below that threshold, they are no longer a bank. They are no longer a financial institution. So if their assets, if their monies is up here, they're fine, right? And say this is their threshold. Once they dip below, the government has to come in and say, no, you can't be a financial institution anymore. Even if it's because the stock market dropped and whatever investments they had on hand were just happened to drop for a minute. That's why the 2008 financial drop was such a big problem for banks, because the stock market tanked to a level that could not have been foreseen and was not planned for. Okay, so it tanked, so their valuation dropped below that threshold, and then they're like, okay, you can't be an institution anymore. And then on top of that, all this other stuff started coming out, and this is part of Um, what just happens when things are good? It's hard to see what's really going on below the surface, but when things are not good, then you see what's been going on. And I wanted to bring this up in light of Pluto and Scorpio. So, let's just see here really quickly. And I know it was October 2008. I remember I was at chiropractic school and um I remember I was in 2008 crisis start looking for a date. 2008. So that one was based on houses. That one was because a lot of banks were selling bad mortgages and they finally came to a head. Stock market. That's what I wanted to see. It was September 29th. Interesting. Okay. So let's just run an astrology chart on September 29th. Let's actually do astro chart. Okay, and so we're gonna look at the astrology of New York City on September 29th, 2008 at noon. We're just gonna say noon. Okay. Okay, and so the things that we are pretty focused in on here, we're going to look at the Capricorn axis, and we're going to be looking at what Pluto was doing at that time. Okay, so Pluto, there he is. Pluto was just about to come into Capricorn. Okay, Capricorn rules banks, financial institutions, housing, like mortgages specifically. So it was very fitting for that to come into play at that time. So as Pluto is all about changing everything, like drastic change. Like think of the phoenix rising from the ashes. So everything has to burn before it can be reborn. So the first thing that we want to look at is this happened, and Pluto is at Pluto. Oh, this is aspects. Here it is. Pluto is at 28 degrees Sagittarius. So what I have seen from a lot of astrologers is that when Pluto enters a sign, there's a 6-week window either side of whatever event's going to happen. So this case, it was just a couple of weeks before Pluto entered Capricorn that the stock market crashed. And the stock market crash is significant because Capricorn is all about business and banks and mortgages, like I said, and all those things. Now, um, let's see what else was going on at that time. Let's see here. This is interesting. So the node, okay, North Node. North Node tells us about like kind of the population, like where the attention is at. And at that time, look at this. The North Node is in Aquarius. Okay. So when Pluto was when we had the stock market crash, we have Pluto about to move into a new sign, which are always herald something weird, crazy across the board happening. And at that exact same time, we have the North Node conjunct Chiron in Aquarius. So the North Node from a global perspective, not from a personal perspective, but from a global perspective, is about where everyone's kind of focus is. And it's in Aquarius. So we're looking towards Aquarius with the North Node. The North Node has nothing to do with where Pluto is, it has to do with the moon. And it changes signs about every 18 months. Okay. So when it's conjunct Chiron, this is significant because Chiron is the wounded healer. So at that time, everybody was like, where the pain was also where the attention was, and where the attention was on basically technology. Aquarius rules technology and surprises. So to have this event, this is not a coincidence, right? That's one of the things that astrologers are looking at. What's going on and what's not a coincidence that this happened at the same time as that. So we're focused in, at that time, we were focused in on the pain of technology, the pain of surprises. And what one time I read something that said the mortgage bubble was actually the tech bubble from the early 2000s pushed forward, which you see that a lot, right? So like when something goes up, like the reason the housing market went way out of control was because all these people were making money with the tech. And then a lot of those tech things went under. And then those people who had bought mortgages using their income based in tech weren't able to sustain those mortgages, and those went under. And there was more to it than that, but kind of that was the generalized concept. So as this is hearkening, like the pain of the tech bubble is where we were placing our attention, and we needed to heal that wound by having this major transformation in the stock market, and it dropped off. So let's run another chart. I'm gonna do Astro charts, and we're gonna do let's see here. We're just gonna do, not today, we're gonna do last week. I can't remember when that was. When did this collapse? March 10th. So we'll run a chart for March 10th. And we'll do New York, New York. 3, 10, 20, 23. Okay, so oh, this is fun. This is fun. Okay. So watch this. Okay, so Pluto is moving out of Capricorn right now into Aquarius. The official date that it actually officially moves in is on the 23rd of March. And so we're about a week out from Pluto officially moving in. But like I said, things happen on 6 weeks on either side with Pluto as far as going into a new sign. So here we are, less than 6 weeks out, and we have this bank collapse, which interestingly enough is a venture capitalist bank focused in on tech. So you remember our wounding from before, like we have to process through this wound to really gain our power in technology. And this is where our attention was focused back then, was technology. So now we have this tech bank collapse. Like it's just, that's too perfect. And this Pluto is moving out of Capricorn into Aquarius. So this here was a herald for what's to come, basically. And again, these are not tied astrologically. These have nothing to do with each other. The fact is that Pluto is now moving out of Capricorn into Aquarius, when before, when it moved into Capricorn, the North Node and Chiron were right next to each other. Okay. So that's the first thing. The next thing is we have, so where's the North Node now? It's in Taurus, coming from Scorpio into Taurus. So the Scorpio Taurus axis is all about money. Remember earlier I was talking about assets and income. Scorpio is about assets and Taurus is about income. So we're moving away from assets into towards income. So interest rates are rising. When you're when you have when you're moving away from assets into income, you're taking the focus off of the pile of money and more onto how much can I make? And right now, assets are depleting because the interest rates are higher. And so everybody who bought 7-year bonds a year, 2 years ago, they're stuck. Their assets are trapped and they cannot make a higher income off of those assets without losing money right now. So the focus, the herald from before, where the focus of the entire thing is, was in technology. Now it's shifting focus of how our money is structured. Um, Pluto is here, and let's see. Okay, here's the other thing. How do I say this? Saturn is moving into Pisces, okay, from Aquarius. So Aquarius is all about technology and kind of being weird and feeling being very, very like intellect focused, but it's also about taking technology from the future and bringing it into the present. And Saturn is all about structure. Saturn and Capricorn are like best friends, basically. So to have Saturn in Aquarius, which is like weird, but like weird structures, and at the same time that all this happens, it moves into Pisces, which is very much about the unknown and about having the subconscious and being very focused in the subconscious, which is on a societal level. When we are talking about the collective unconscious, so now we're going through all of the structures of what we believe as a society, all wrapped up in this bank coming down, right? So everything that we had learned from 2008 is now coming back to sort of be tested again and see what it is that is true and real, right? That's what Saturn's all about, finding what's true and real and reliable and relying on that. So having it be in Pisces means that it's now time to unpack the collective unconscious and really understand what has been going on under the surface as we make this transition from assets to focus on income. I think that's all I got. I hope that you enjoyed this. And let me know if you have any questions about this, because I just said like a lot of things all at once. Um, and subscribe, please. I would love to connect more with you. And you can find me on my Facebook group, which is called The Last Self-Care Group You Will Ever Need. And yeah, all right. I love you so much.